Well, welcome back to part 2 of our crop insurance update. This next part is going to be based on understanding these disaster programs, not only the options that you have through us here at KW Insurance, but also the FSA side of things. So I'm going to walk you through an example using our farm, kind of how these are projected to pay using some university data. So there's multiple programs you could pick from, right? There was PLC and ARC at the FSA. So for last fall, or this spring possibly, you guys had to pick either PLC or ARC, and then you're going to be locked into that for the at least 5 years of the farm bill here. So if you picked ARC, that's what you're going to be in at the FSA for 5 years, and you won't be eligible for SEO. If you pick PLC, then you'll also be eligible for the supplemental coverage option through us. PLC pays only when the price falls below a set base price. We'll go through what those prices are. ARC works kind of like a giant crop insurance policy for the entire county. So once the county falls below a certain revenue trigger amount, which like for Toole County, let's say the wheat had a 30 bushel average and the 5-year average of the wheat price was $5. You'd start with $150 an acre for the county. The county comes in below 86% of that, then it's going to trigger at 85% of your base acres. And then SEO is a supplemental coverage option. That one actually is something that you pay into through the federal crop side. The payment's figured off of the county's average yield and revenue. So it's a county-wide triggered program, but the amount you get paid varies depending on what yields you have for each unit on your crop insurance. The other good thing about this program is it uses your actual seeded acres instead of the FSA side, which only pays on 85% of your base. So substantial difference in the gross amount of dollars that'll be paid out on this program, just because usually 85% of our base acres doesn't match very closely to what we're actually seeding on these farms. The only thing with SEO is you must be in PLC to qualify, right? So for PLC, the base prices are set for the entire farm program here. So once wheat's market year average price falls below $5.50, it's going to start to trigger a payment. Barley at $4.95, peas $6.60, and canola $10.40. You'll see for 2015, most of these are projected to pay something. As we get into these next slides, I'll cover that in more detail. So here's our projected payments as of August 14th. They were projecting wheat to pay 40 cents a bushel. So that'd be 40 cents times your FSA yield times your base acres. On 85% of your base acres is what your payment would be on that. That's actually up to 50 cents now that there's a new month figured in there. So this was the first month that was figured into the crop year. Barley, they were projecting at 35 cents. Now that's dropped all the way down to like 10 cents on the next month's calculation. So hopefully the barley thing turns around where we qualify for a payment on that. We're only a few months into the average. Look at another crop that is a concern to some of us. If you had pea base acres, you'd qualify for about a half a cent a pound payment on peas and 3.9 cents on canola. So how is this price even figured? That's what this slide covers here for us. So it's not that each month is weighted the same as they're figuring the wheat price throughout the U.S. The good thing about the PLC program is it's actually using the cash prices on wheat received at the elevator. It's not using futures markets, so the basis is reflected in there. For example, let's say like for July here, it shows that the futures price was $4.90 a bushel. The basis probably 60 cents or so off of that. We're actually only going to get $4.30 a bushel at the elevator. All the other programs, like even the crop insurance side of things, just uses futures markets without any consideration of basis. So it is very possible, if you throw basis in there, that wheat would average considerably less than $5.50 a bushel for this following year. This shows us how those are weighted. So you'll see every month they're going to average the cash price for wheat rolling forward. 72% of that average is done in the first 6 months because that's where the majority of the grain is sold. So what does that mean for us? If the futures market stays down, which you don't usually hope for that through December, but this would be one scenario where you would. If it stays down through December, even if there's a pretty significant movement upwards after that, most of the weighting is already done in the average. So by December, we'll have a pretty good grip on how this program is going to pay. This university spreadsheet used the futures market going forward, so it took each set of months futures price minus the historical basis to come up with a projection for how PLC is going to pay for 2015. At the time that I ran this report, they were projecting a 70 cent per bushel payment on wheat on PLC, so that'd be pretty major for us, right? you had a 40 bushel average at the FSA times 77 cents, you'd get more than $30 an acre on 85% of your wheat base in this scenario. So definitely projecting some kind of payment for wheat for 2015. I would think figuring like 50 cents a bushel would be a pretty conservative good number to use on that, just so we're not disappointed on the downside anyways. So how does SEO work? This is the program you can buy through our agency, or through any crop insurance agency, I should say. This is a paid-in pool of disaster money. So on the FSA side, it's basically free to be in those programs. This is a pool that you pay into for a county-wide disaster program. It's based off of 86% of the county's average revenue is where your guarantee starts. And then this coverage will run all the way down to where your crop insurance level is at. So if you'd pick the 70% level on your individual side of your crop insurance, you would have 16% SEO guarantee. It's similar to ARC, but based off actual seeded acres and your crop insurance level, not off of your base. So that's the first positive in here, is that it's not using your base acres. It'll be using crop insurance yields in 2016. So going forward, we're going to use the yields that you report to us on your production reports, not the survey data stuff. Two really good things about that. Obviously more accurate because you're not guessing like you are in the surveys oftentimes. And then also the data will be more immediately available. They figure by the end of April, we should have all of the data, yield data in, instead of waiting all the way till the end of the summer like we would on the survey data. So the payment should get issued sooner because of this, plus more accurate starting yields for the county and more accurate year-by-year yields because we're using crop insurance going forward. Must be in PLC, not ARC to qualify. And the only commodities eligible in Montana for 2015 were wheat and barley. There's supposed to be more added for 2016, which we're assuming that peas will be one of those crops this spring that we'll be able to add on there as well. So we'd be able to cover pretty much everything with this SEO program going forward. I'll show you why the pea thing was a big deal in 2015 when we get to our individual farm example. So here's an example how it would work. You come to us and you say, okay, I want to do the 70% level on my wheat going forward here. Your SEO coverage is based on the difference between 86% and whatever level you pick on the crop insurance. So here you'll see 86% minus your 70% individual level means you get 16% coverage on SEO. Then down here we're going to say your average yield on a unit is 40 bushels times $6 a bushel base price, just to make this simple. Means that they're predicting you're going to gross about $240 an acre on this unit for wheat. Of that, 70% of that is covered by your individual side of your crop insurance. But then 16% now is covered through this countywide disaster program. So they're going to take 16% of your estimated gross dollars to come up with your SEO guarantee for this unit. So if the county got down below 70% of its average revenue in this scenario, you would get $38.80 an acre on every acre in that unit for SEO. That could be a huge deal, especially like last year where we were in a pretty big drought, plus there's a revenue drop. I would say there's a really, really good chance that this SEO is going to pay out completely if you were about the 70% level on the crop insurance. So the first step in this is the whole county's guarantee needs to be figured, because remember, this triggers on a county level, not on your individual crop insurance, or not on your individual farm yields. So in our scenario here, we're going to say that there was a $6 base price figured for wheat, and the county average yields 35 bushels for spring wheat, let's say. So starting out, they were expecting the county was going to make $210 an acre on wheat. And remember, we're guaranteed 86% of the county's average is where it's going to start to trigger. So once the county, for the fall, when we have the actual yields figured in there, gets below $180 an acre for its gross dollars on wheat, this program will start to trigger on your crop insurance. So the whole county's yield and price are used to figure your SEO payment then in the fall as well. So whatever happens on your farm does not mean anything to this program as far as how much it's going to trigger, basically. It's all based on a county level. So in this example, we're going to say we got to harvest and the price dropped, remember on our previous slide, from $6 to $5 a bushel for the average price for wheat. Now the county's average yield this year was only 25 bushels versus our 35 average because we were in a drought. This would be pretty similar to this year that we actually experienced here. So now, instead of the county's base revenue, which was $210 an acre, we came in at only $125 an acre of what they considered to be the actual revenue for wheat in Toole County. So the county came in at 55% of what its historical average is for wheat. Since we're all the way down to 59% of average, we get all of our SEO payment, right? Because we're down below where our crop insurance level is. So had the county come in at 80% of average, we would have got just part of that SEO payment on each one of our units. Because it came in below our crop insurance level for average, we get all of our SEO payment. So this triggers across every wheat unit on your farm. You just get 100% of your guarantee because the county came in below your crop insurance level. So what's the advantage of this? It allows you to receive FSA payments through PLC and also disaster support payments through the crop insurance side of things as well. There's no payment cap on SEO, so some of these bigger farms may cap out on PLC or ARC at $125,000 per entity. There's no payment cap on SEO. And because it's triggered at the county level, you could be eligible for a payment even if you cut above your crop insurance guarantee in your crop operation. So that's an advantage or a disadvantage, right? If your whole farm gets hailed up but the rest of the county did well, you wouldn't get a payment on this. If the county started to trigger, but your farm did well, you can get a payment on this regardless of how your individual farming operation did. So basically what this is you paying into an FSA style disaster program. The advantage of this is you kind of are in two programs at once now, right? You're in PLC for the price support, you're in SEO for the yield and revenue county support, so you can actually receive payments from both sides, which in a year like this can make a substantial difference. We're going to go through our actual farm example as I get farther into this. So the disadvantages of SEO, obviously it costs to participate. That's probably the number one hang up for most people, is you're going to pay about 11 to 14% of whatever your guarantee is into SEO starting off. And then it's based on the county yield and national market year average price. This actually shouldn't say national market year average price. This is actually your crop insurance futures price. So it uses the same base price and harvest price as your crop insurance. Sorry for the sloppy handwriting, by the way, but that's a disadvantage and an advantage, just like we talked about in the last slide. It's just that it's going to reflect whatever happened to the county, not to your individual farm. The only other problem is since we're using a program that has to have all the data in for the county, you won't be paid probably till the following August. That might step up closer to June or July once we start using crop insurance yields for that. But it's going to be delayed till the next year before you get the money, actually. So what to do? In our opinion, I think the very best way to stave off like a major disaster problem will be to be in PLC and SEO at the same time. The perfect storm actually happened that we sort of predicted last year when you went through this presentation was that we had a huge collapse in commodity prices that's going to trigger PLC for wheat, at least for sure, probably. And then we also had a drought on top of this, which will trigger SEO payments probably on every crop in our county. So we're going to go through an actual farm example that will help you guys understand how this all ties together better, I think. So for our farm, we have about 3,000 acres of crop a year. That crop consists of about a third barley, a third wheat, and a third peas. So for this last crop year, we had 1,200 acres of barley, 900 acres of peas, and 900 acres of winter wheat. The barley and wheat were both enrolled in SEO. We would have done the peas as well, but remember we weren't eligible in 2015 for peas. And we'll get into the ramifications of not being able to do the peas when we finally get into the payouts at the end here. So all our base acres obviously had to be enrolled in PLC to do this. So we're in PLC on the FSA side, which will probably trigger some decent sized payments for our farm. And then this SEO should kick in some pretty major payments that will help at least recover some of the losses that we had here. For our farm, we have base acres of 1,700 acres of wheat and 925 of barley. So if we're to add those base acres together, if we take 1,700 plus 925, we're looking at about 1,625 base acres, or sorry, 2,625 base acres total. And remember, we only get paid on 85% of that, right? So if we take the 2625 times 85%, we're only eligible for payments through the FSA on 2,231 acres, even though we have 3,000 acres of crop. So while the FSA disaster programs are great because they're free, they don't cover the total acres that we have seeded on the farm. The only other problem is there's no P base for us because we started Ps kind of after where they were going to let us reallocate base acres. So if the P price were to tank, let's say for PLC, that wouldn't be really reflected on our farming operation. So this is where SEO fits well into some of this stuff. So here's a probable example for 2015 for PLC for our farm. We have 1,700 base acres of wheat. We get paid on 85% of that, remember, not on all of them. So we'll get a payment on 1,445 base acres of wheat. We have a 35 bushel FSA yield on average across those farms. And for this slide, I use 60 cents a bushel PLC payment. Remember that one slide back, the university was predicting 77 cents, which is certainly possible. I was going to be a little more conservative here just so we weren't on the high side. So our PLC payment on wheat for our farm will probably be about $30,000 for 2015 because of the commodity decline. On barley, hopefully that average gets straightened out, but I was using 40 cents a bushel payment on that. So we'll get about a $14,000 payment on the barley. That's on 80% of our 925 acres. So our total PLC payment for about 3,000 acres of crop should be $44,000. What if we'd elected ARC? To me, since ARC had such a high starting base price because it uses a 5-year Olympic average for that, I think there's a reasonable expectations that ARC's going to pay out 100%, at least in Toole County, because our yields were pretty poor as well. So we're going to say that we got all of our ARC payment had we been in that side of the program. We would have got about $36,000 on the wheat, or $25 an acre. This will be the same for all the farms in Toole County that are in County ARC, by the way. This has nothing to do with your FSA yields. It just triggers the same dollar amount throughout the county. So if you're looking at ARC and you want to kind of know what you'd get paid total, you can figure on your payable base acres, or 85% of your base, you probably will get a $25 an acre payment on wheat and roughly a $27 payment on barley, because our barley yields were pretty poor in the county as well. So we would be looking at an ARC payment of $57,000 versus a PLC payment of only about $44,000. So for this 1 year, we may have actually been better off in ARC from an FSA standpoint. But now what happens if we add our SEO coverage into that? So in theory, I mean, I know I'm doing a lot of projecting here, but ARC probably paid $12,000 better than PLC for this crop year using the projections that we have. But remember, because we were in ARC, we couldn't be in the SEO program through the federal crop, right? So let's see what happens with our SEO payout once we add that into all of this stuff. So these are our actual SEO guarantees for the 2015 crop year for our farm. On barley, we're going to figure SEO is going to pay out completely, probably because the barley yields were incredibly poor, at least up by the Sweetgrass Hills where the bulk of the barley is, plus the price drop. So we'll probably get a $34,000 barley payment. That's what our guarantee is. $22,000 on the winter wheat, because remember we had that big revenue drop, plus there was some declines in yield because of the drought. So for our farm, we'll probably get a $56,000 SEO payout. Plus, we were in PLC, right? Because we were in two programs at once. So our total disaster payout for 2015, when you throw these two programs together, is probably going to be in the ballpark of $101,000. Had we elected County ARC, all we would have got was the $57,000 because we couldn't enroll in SEO. So the difference between the combination of those two products is $43,000 for this one crop year. Now remember, we couldn't insure our Ps on SEO, right? So we didn't really get the full benefit out of SEO like it will work going forward, where we have all of our acres covered. Had we been able to insure our Ps, I figured what our 16% of our projected P revenue would be. So on those acres of Ps, that 900 acres of Ps, we would have got about $35,000 out of SEO as well. Our premium for SEO in 2015, I'm sure that's the next part that you guys are wondering about, is we paid $7,300 into SEO for that $56,000 payout. So you always end up paying in between 12 and 14%. But your odds of getting paid are pretty high, right? Because all the county has to do is fall below 86% of its average, which is, that's not a real big blip on the radar when you take revenue and yield into account. So we would have received another $35,000 in P payout had we been able to insure those. So going forward, had we been able to insure everything on SEO plus get our PLC trigger, the difference between being in PLC SEO combination versus being an ARC with a total payout on ARC was $136,000 versus $57,000. So we're looking at about an $80,000 difference for about $10,000 premium had we added the P's also into the SEO there. So substantial difference in these years where it's hard to make cash flow work anyways. I think that $3 or $4 for the SEO is well worth the money if you're in PLC at the FSA, because we can run into scenarios here where farm-wise, we probably cash flow to negative $50,000 off of the farm. You can see even in this year, even though we weren't even able to enroll in the P's, it's going to more than make up for our negative cash flow here by being in both programs at once, it looks like. So for those of you that we mailed quote sheets out to, there's some generic SEO quotes here. This will kind of show us how SEO would pay and what it would cost. So let's take the most average level that people pick, which would be 70% optional units on their winter wheat. This is for just a 25 bushel wheat average, so this is pretty low, right? But when we come across here, it's going to cost you $4.83 to insure $93 worth of wheat on the optional unit side. The SEO would be an additional $3.53 an acre for $28 worth of coverage. So it seems like you're paying a whole bunch for not much coverage on SEO, but remember when that triggers, it triggers across every unit on your farm. And for it to trigger, it only has to get below 86% of the county's average. So that can happen by cutting an average yield in the county, but having the futures market drop. That can trigger it. Or you might get into a drought in the county and the market goes up. If that happens, if the market goes up in SEO, and let's say the county cut 50% of its average or something, so we got all of our payment, you actually get a higher payment than per acre than this. So this $28.12 is based off of the $5.34 winter wheat base price. If for some reason next fall the futures market on wheat went up to $10, you don't pay any more premium, but you'd end up with a $56 an acre, a double payment basically on SEO because of an increase in the futures with a drought scenario in the county. So that's another big difference between SEO and ARC. When the price goes up, it actually will take you out of a loss, even if you're in a drought in the county, because they're valuing the crop at more. If we get down to where it's triggering a yield loss on SEO in the county, it's actually going to work just like your individual crop insurance side, where it's just going to pay you more per bushel for every bushel that we're short. So multiple ways to get huge payments out of SEO. You very well may have a check sheet, hopefully, that we mailed you as well. Please go through each one of these items on the checklist, because these are the most common things we need to know to avoid some errors on your crop insurance policy. First big one always is, did you change anything with your entity structure? Did one of your landlords have a spouse that died, or maybe the incorporator formed an LLC? We need to know not only the changes with your policy, but any of the landlords that you take care of their policies as well. Are you seeding winter wheat? Circle yes or no. And then if you're not, you can skip all the way down to question 6. If you are seeding winter wheat, we need to know if you want to be in enterprise or optional units, the level. Do you want to enroll in SEO or not? Would you like to add rainfall insurance to your grass or hay, or change levels on it? That's another thing for this deadline. The big one is, are you doing any new breaking? This could be CRP that's out for more than 2 years, or we also need to know if you're just taking CRP out that's going to qualify for insurance. We just need to know when you broke it out so we can tell if it's summer, fall, or recrop. And also that breakout date will help us to determine whether we need to do more paperwork to get that insured or not. If you've been involved in a farming operation for more than 5 years, if that's a no, then we can get you qualified for these beginning farmer rancher discounts. And do you need to meet with us one-on-one to discuss your coverage? If that's a yes, then we'll make sure we set up a meeting with you so we can go through some individual issues with your crop insurance. Here's your unit structure comparison report. As an example here, let's just pick a summer, fall, winter wheat yield unit with a 33 bushel yield like we have here. So if we come across on the 33 bushel yield unit, you can see here's our levels that we can pick from. Let's say we pick the 70% level, or we want to compare 70 to 80 or something on the crop insurance. So the only two columns you care about here are optional units and enterprise. Don't worry about these other two. So for a 33 bushel summer fall wheat yield, your premium for optional units at 70% would be $7.19. For enterprise units, if you had, I think this is based off of 1,000 acres of crop, you get a little bigger discount the more acres you put into these enterprise units. But your premium, if you throw all that together, remember this is going to throw the winter and the spring wheat together if you're doing that as well, it goes down to $2.96 from $7.19. So less than half of the premium to be enrolled in enterprise versus optional, but certainly multiple ways you may not get paid on that, right? The nice thing about enterprise units is that it lets you buy up to a pretty high level. So here's 80%. Enterprise is only $6.91 an acre. If you try to do that on optional units, it'd be $13.02 an acre. So it becomes pretty unaffordable at higher levels in optional units once you get especially above 75% because the subsidy goes away quite a lot. Enterprise makes that more affordable. Here's your per acre guarantees for each level. So at 70%, be $124 an acre. If you go up to 80, it'd be $142. So we would gain $20 an acre of coverage for an extra $6 an acre about in premium between 70 and 80% on optional units. That's how that quote sheet works. Feel free to go through and look at your own. You should have received them from us by now. If you have not, just give us a call and we'll email you. Thanks so much for watching this video. It sure saves us a lot of time when you at least take the time to roll through this and learn as much as you can before coming to talk to us. If you have any questions, always feel free to either email us or stop by the office, and we'll get to you in the spring. Thanks for watching.